Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today, before we start class, I do have a little bit of an announcement to make, and that is that this past week I have started a Discord. For those of you who have already seen that I started a Discord and joined this past week, I have had a couple people who have already joined. I want to thank you so much for joining and wanting to be a part of the Fantasy Fiction Fanatics community. For those of you who do not know what Discord is a place that you can create your own little server, and you can invite people to that server and chat together. And there's different things called channels where you have different sections that you can go to and have different topics to have discussions under. So everybody who is in the server and joins the server is able to chat and talk to each other and have a community of us to be able to talk together. So if you are interested in chatting with your fellow fantasy fiction fanatics and want to talk about fantasy fiction or really a lot of other things, I have lots of other options for us to talk about on there. But you just want to have a discussion, meet some people, get to know who else is watching, that kind of stuff, you are welcome to join. I would love it if you were interested in joining that and coming and talking. And of course I'm on there, so we'll get to chat together as well. So the link will be below if you'd like to join. It's completely free. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to make a Discord account. You can do it either online. You can get the app for it, or there's also a downloadable application for Mac and Windows if you'd like to do that. So lots of different options on how to get there. And in order to find my server, the link will be in the description box below. So you'll click that link and it will send you there and invite you and add you to the server. So yeah, if you'd like to have meet some people, chat, have a great time, get to know each other, and all that kind of stuff, I would love to see you there, and I hope that you join. Alright, I guess let's go ahead and get on to today's class. So today's class we're going to be finishing up the third book in the Mercy Thompson series called Iron-Kissed, and there seems to be a whole lot happening in these last set of chapters. It's like, you know, we had this beginning and we're kind of getting into things, and then bam, everything happens at the end that we need to know, and it's very fast-paced, lots of things happening going on. So not saying that it's rushed or that it's written poorly at all, just that it seems like everything is building up and then we all just run with what's happening all at once at the last couple chapters here and wrap everything up. So let's go ahead and jump right in, since there is a lot to talk about. And we will start off with our recap as always. So we start with Mercy going to the Bright Future meeting that Tim has invited her to. And she finds out that Tim is not the actual leader of this group. He's very much more of a side person, and most of them don't even listen to him. They are much more interested in what everybody else has to say and discussing things, and even when he does say things, they usually don't pay attention to him unless somebody else agrees or puts forth the same idea. So he's very much more of a person on the side for this meeting, even though it's in his own house and he is the one hosting this meeting. So we see this meeting, we get through it, and Tim decides to invite Mercy for dinner. She's not exactly sure why she says yes, but she decides that she's gonna go and drives home, only to find that Eillen is following her from the meeting. So she's driving, she finally pulls over to confront him about following her. And she discovers that Eillen is really a Fae, some kind of water Fae, it seems. And Aiden's not very happy that she's there and that she is in the middle of all of this, and decides to attack her and chases her. So Mercy runs directly to Adam's house for help from the wolves. So the wolves that are there go ahead and attack Fidel, which is Aiden's last name. So they attack him and they fend him off enough to get rid of him and end up saving Mercy. So Mercy isn't exactly happy that Adam had to save her, but she does come to him and is rescued with the help of the wolves, and everything turns out okay. She does end up deciding still to go to Tim's house after she has a conversation with him and realizes that he knows what items O'Donnell was stealing from the Fae. So she decides to go to the dinner instead of canceling like she had originally planned to do. So she gets there, and very quickly she ends up finding out that Tim is O'Donnell's killer, and that he has some of the Fae artifacts that they could not recover from, that the Fae could not recover from O'Donnell's house. But he didn't realize that he had missed the walking stick. So he continually makes Mercy drink from this liquid from the Fae goblet that he has. And it's making her very compliant, very able, very willing to do whatever he says. She just kind of ends up doing it, and just suddenly is realizing that she is doing this and that that's what he wants from her. He demands for her to take him to the Fae walking stick, which she says is probably at her garage. So they go to the garage, and she lets them in. We don't know this right away, but she does put it in the code that lets Adam know she's in trouble. And while they're there, Tim does force himself upon Mercy under the guise of this drink, telling her that she needs to love him and to want him and to think he's wonderful, and forces himself on her. She does club him over the head with the walking stick and kill him, which is good for her that she was able to fight the goblet. And right afterward, Adam breaks in and lets his own fury out on Tim's corpse. But they go ahead, they get Mercy, they work with the police, they convince the Fae to let the police examine and know about these artifacts in order for Mercy to not be considered only drunk or have any kind of murder charge against her. Instead, it will be clear that it was self-defense and that she did not want what was happening with Tim. And then we see everything wrapping up as Mercy is trying to recover from what has been done to her, and how that relationship with her and Adam is working. So it's very hard kind of ending, especially with how this is obviously going to affect Mercy. But she does, in the end, find out the killer, free Z, and is able to get the Fae artifacts back to the Fae once they're done with the police. So it is a little bit of a rough ending there of some events happening to her. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Tim to start off with, because Tim ends up being our villain in this book, and he's a very unlikely villain. I don't know about you guys, maybe you guys figured this out sooner, but for me, I know when I first read it, I was not thinking that Tim was the person who had done the murder. Like, I didn't really suspect him until she went to his house and realized that she was eating and doing the things that he said without any thought process, without bulking or doing any of those things that she normally would do, and being like, heck no, I'm not doing what you're saying. So for me, it was definitely a surprise for the first time I read it. I don't know about you guys, if you guys figured it out. I will admit that a lot of times I don't figure that kind of stuff out. I'm usually surprised. Maybe that says something about me, I don't know. But to me, he seemed like a very unlikely villain. Though, as you know, you look back, you can see like, hey, he was pushed around, hey, he was not listened to, hey, all these little signs of him being odd and having these moments where you can see how he might become somebody who is just gonna dive right in and trying to take everything into his own hands because nobody will listen to him or give him a second thought otherwise. So you can definitely see looking back for sure. But in many ways he also seems, because he has, nobody follows him, nobody really pays him much attention, you wouldn't think of him as a villain. You'd think of him as somebody who is mistreated, yes, but not necessarily somebody who's out for vengeance. He talks and laughs with Mercy, he flirts with her. So there are little bits of odd bits in there that you can think and see how he turned out the way he did, but you don't automatically really seem like he's the super mastermind kind of villain person. On the other hand, though, once you do know this, and he is more open about his motivations and how he sees things and what he wants to do, you realize that, man, this guy is absolutely nuts. He really has just, something has broken inside of him, and he is now absolutely crazy and just wants to be noticed and wants to have his way. So he's definitely, you know, whatever, if that was the original Tim, is how you kind of see him as how he used to be, and then now something like in him has broken, and now he's this other way. We don't know exactly when the switch happened for him, but we do know that him getting these Fae artifacts for sure has definitely empowered him to just break all the boundaries and just go for absolute nuts. It really shows that humans in Mercy's world can be just as dangerous as the supernatural, because we see in the first book that we have werewolves. They're the ones that are causing problems and having problems and such. And in the second one, we see that with the vampires. This one, we see humans killing Fae, and Fae are very powerful. We do know that, you know, Z especially is, you know, more powerful than we see him at this moment. We get those hints and inklings, and we get that the Fae in general, like with the Grey Lords and how things are interacted with, and the little pieces that we've seen of the Fae, that they are very powerful. And yet, a human has been killing them. And they couldn't even tell who the killer was. And then we have another human killing said human in order to gain the artifacts and to gain the power of the Fae. So, humans in this world are also just as powerful. Maybe not magic-wise, and maybe not, you know, physical strength-wise, but they can be just as deadly and just as dangerous and everything else to, you know, our mythological creatures that are actually real in this world. So humans are not just these weak things that, you know, cannot fight back. We do see here 100% that a human can find a way to be just as dangerous as any mythological creature or any creature with power. So it's very, very interesting to see Tim as the villain versus a Fae as the villain, or a vampire as the villain, or a werewolf as the villain. It's definitely an interesting and important thing to see, I think. With world building, with realizing the thoughts and feelings of people, to see, you know, what kind of power can fall into the wrong hands, all those kinds of things. This kind of is covered by, is covering all those things, can show us how corruption and stuff like that can still happen to humans. It's not just going to be the creatures and the monsters that are the dangerous ones in this world. And in many ways, it shows that humans can be monsters more than monsters can be. You know, Adam is a werewolf, and his pack are werewolves, but they're good people. They care about the humans that they're around. They don't hurt anybody. They don't, you know, try to antagonize anybody or take over the world. The Fae are definitely dangerous, but we can see by Z. Z really likes Mercy and really likes the werewolves and doesn't, you know, hurt her or want to take over her mind or anything like that. He actually is very protective of her, and is why he doesn't originally ask her to help out. Uncle Mike, we see, is a decent Fae. We don't know everything about him, but he's trying to help Z because he's his friend, and he's relying on Mercy to help him. We see Stefan is as good of a vampire as we're gonna get, because vampires are considered pure evil, but Stefan really cares about Mercy, and Stefan really tries to help her not be in Marcilla's crosshairs and to keep her out of danger. So we see several instances where the monsters are the good guys, and at this point we're seeing that the human can be that a human can be the bad guy, which I think is a very interesting thing. So the human in this case was the monster, and was the person that was being a murderer and a terrorist and thrusting himself on Mercy, and he's just an average human. So it's definitely something different to consider and something unique to think about in this situation, is that not only are the typical monsters the only ones you have to look out for. And later, as we continue on with more books, we will see what other kinds of villains and what other kinds of problems happen in this world. And moving forward, will we have human monsters, or will we have monsters and such? How often we will see this trend of it being humans that are the ones that are doing damage to other people. Now let's go ahead and talk about Mercy, especially in this section with what has been done to her. I think it's very important to talk about her and how this will affect her moving forward, especially since, you know, we have tons more books. Obviously, this has happened fairly early in the series and in the story, so this is going to follow her into the next books, possibly into all of them, because, you know, things that have happened to you often stick with you forever. So she is been forced upon. She has been raped because of this magic that has been also thrust onto her. So this drink was forcing her to comply and to do what he wanted. It shows that this whole section shows, and an event shows, how incredibly strong-willed she is, how incredibly strong of a person she is, because she refuses to break under the magic drink. He is constantly telling her to drink more, not understanding why she's not just aimlessly complying. So yes, there are times certain things that she did right away, and she does do most of the things that he wants, but usually she does it in the way that's not really how he wants it. She tries to work around what he's telling her to do, and she even thinks, hey, something's not right, I don't really want to do this, why am I doing this? So and so much so that, you know, it even mentioned that she should not have been able to keep saying no and to resist when she's had so much of this drink to drink, and she still was conscious enough, even after him telling her to have feelings for him and to care about him, for her to take the walking stick and club him over the head with it. So it's extremely amazing that Mercy was able to overcome so much that was on top of her and to try and save herself as best she could. It's also very damaging to know that Adam and other people saw what was happening to her. It's not something that she can just tell who she wants to tell, can open up and be vulnerable about it. It's that she knew that Adam was watching because she typed in that code that let him know she was in danger. She knows that other people have seen it, like the police and stuff like that. Like, we have heard in her presence, like, we're gonna send this to this person, and, you know, all of these things. And it's not something that's going to be kept quiet. It's not something that she can just share her vulnerability when she'd like to, when she's ready to express that to somebody else. And also the person that she is interested in and has been thinking about possibly having a future with and deciding if she wants that, now knows this has happened, has seen this happen to her, and is worried about how that is going to reflect upon her towards him. So that is very damaging for her as well. It's very damaging that Tim gave her feelings for him and a desire to have him that were not even hers. So she didn't love him, she didn't want to have any particular feelings, but he forced those feelings onto her and made her have to absorb it emotionally and to live it and feel it, and yet still protect herself despite feeling love and affection and caring. And so it also emotionally screws her up in the fact that she has feelings for Adam and was thinking about fully being with Adam and understands the complexity and the full scope of what's going on with him declaring her as his mate. She understands all that. But now she has to contend with these other feelings that make her feel like she betrayed him. And the whole situation feels like a betrayal to him. So we've just got pile upon pile upon pile of all this damage that Tim has done to her. It's a very, very dark thing for anybody to have to endure and have to live with. So we really see how strong Mercy is, that she has taken this under herself and has helped herself through it, as well as it helps us see and understand the reaction that comes with it afterward, how she is very unlike herself afterward. She is normally a very strong person, but she sees herself as less. She's very self-confident and knows her own self-worth, but at this point, all of that's been broken. And it's not helpful that, at this point, at the very beginning, before Ben talks to him, Adam doesn't understand and is not picking the right time to judge her actions, which also leads her to feel like, yeah, Adam feels the same way I do. I am less, I am not worthy, and is doing more damage to her. So yeah, it's very, very dark, very hard thing to know that that's happened to somebody and for it to happen the way that it did. So it's really important to take this in, to understand that this happened, and to see how Mercy is going to move forward. This does happen at the end of this book, so we don't yet know exactly how this will continue to change her and affect her in the future until we read more books. But it's definitely something that is going to affect the core of Mercy's being, and is going to be important for us to keep in mind as we continue to read and continue to see her develop and to know the hardships that she is going through. But I definitely want to say that I think this shows how strong and how amazing she is, especially at the very end. It's a little bit of a kind of a cliffhanger where she decides she's going to take Adam and she's just going to try and move past these events that have happened to her. Okay, so if there's anything you would like to discuss, anything more that you think should be said about either Tim or about Mercy at this point, please let me know. Comment down below. Reach out. I would love to have a discussion with you on these points. It's, like I said, a lot happens in this section, and a lot of important things happen that are deeply defining for Mercy and for, Adam and the people who are going to be in her life who know that this happened to her. So, yeah, if there's anything you think I missed, anything else that you think should be said, anything that you think I got wrong or you're not sure about, please let me know. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about Ben really quickly before we end up talking about Adam, because I do want to talk about all the people who are affected by this event that has happened. But Ben I want to touch on because Ben is very important when it comes to Adam and his reactions and how he ends up relating to Mercy with everything that's happening. As well as because Ben has been at this point kind of a very side character that's very shifty. Mercy often wonders, if he really did rape some women back in the UK, and that's why he ran here, if he was actually guilty. She also thinks that he's just a very shifty person who seems like he's a jerk and not a good person. But here we really see a different side. We've kind of seen a little bit with how Ben in book 1 saved Adam and helped Adam, and we have seen other little snippets that are like, who really is Ben? Is he really a bad guy? I mean, he's coming across as a bad guy, but is he really a bad guy? There's these little hints of goodness in him. And here you really see a changed perspective, or at least this is where I have really seen a changed perspective of Ben. Because you're very unsure about him and his motivations from books 1 and 2 and this point to book 3. But then he turns around and forces Adam to listen to him about what has happened to Mercy, his response to her response to it, and that he's being a complete and utter idiot to take Mercy at face value right now. He really has a very full heart-to-heart with Adam and telling him to get his head straight. He's not doing it very respectfully, which in this case I give him props, because Adam is being an idiot and not thinking about Mercy and what has actually been done to her, just assuming she's gonna get up and get over it. So he really empathizes with Mercy and what has happened to him, and you see that he's crying, and that what's happened to her really strikes him hard and really matters to him. And we also see from Adam's response after everything is said and done, and Adam has the little light bulb that's like, oh ding, like I'm part of the problem here. We see this comment where he mentions, his Ben's experience and saying how a child shouldn't be at fault or considered at fault for anything that happens. So you see this little snippet that's not confirmed 100% as to what exactly happened or if it's the exact same situation, but either Ben was physically abused or possibly raped or something of that nature as a little kid, based on that comment that Adam makes about a child not being held responsible for being hurt by adults. So we really get to see this brand new side to Ben, this new little growth of like, hey, Ben actually seems like he has his problems and he's a very gruff person, but maybe he's a really wonderful person as well, especially with how he's sticking up for Mercy in this situation and making sure that Adam understands what is going on with Mercy emotionally and how he should help her versus making things worse on her end. So he really sympathizes with what she's been through. He cries for her, like I said. So we really see a new side to Ben that I think is very important, especially as we move forward with Ben in the books to come. I think that this is very important to keep in mind, this new perspective that we have of him. Alright, now let's go ahead and talk about Adam. I think that this moment and this situation shows how good of a person Adam is and how much Mercy means to him. Because, how you handle a situation like this and how you let it affect you and your relationship with somebody can say a lot about what kind of person you are and what kind of character you have going on in this story. So, Adam at first does not get it, does not totally understand, and I don't blame him for that at all. I understand, you would think like, hey, how could you think like this to begin with? But I don't think this is a situation that he has come across personally much in his life. So he's not used to how to handle it. And I just think that this is a portion of just being naive and not getting it, especially with how resilient Mercy is on everything else, that he just doesn't totally get that she hasn't bounced back, because she always bounces back. He's used to her being one way and used to her being so strong-willed that he doesn't see in his brain that she can be anything else. So he understands how horrible this was for her, but he just doesn't quite click in the fact that she needs more time than he's given her to make that comeback and to make the decision to move forward from it. So he doesn't think of Mercy as any less because of this experience. He does not blame her in any way, shape, or form. Especially we see that once he's talked to Ben and Ben asks him, is she at fault? Because of the magic that was placed on her. Like, is she at fault like she thinks she is? Has she betrayed you? And he instantly denies it and is like, how could you even think? How could anybody think that I mean, he understands the thought process, but he immediately is like, heck no. This was not something that she wanted. This was not her fault. This is not a betrayal in any way, shape, or form. So that is really important, that Adam is very adamant that she didn't betray him and didn't, she didn't willingly want this to happen for herself. He doesn't see her as any less. He thinks of her as still his strong, miraculous, wonderful Mercy, and does not no longer want her or think that she has value because this has happened to her. So I think that those are very, very important things, especially with the fact that Mercy is going to, has been thinking about trusting this person with being her life partner. So it's very important that we see this side of how he reacts to what's happened with Mercy. And I think it also is very important to see that even though it takes a little bit of clubbing on the head for him to come around, because he's just so out of his depth at this moment, but he does truly want to understand Mercy's position. He does truly want to see things from her perspective. He just doesn't know how, and it's hard for him because he doesn't get it. And at first he doesn't feel like he has a misconception of what her perception is, so he takes a little bit from Ben of actually, getting up in his face and being like, listen to me here, you're completely making things worse, for him to calm down and be like, let me learn about this misconception that I'm having, about this problem and knowing what's happening. Let me learn, let me see what Ben has to say. And he processes it, he takes it in, and he gets it, understands it, and knows how to rework himself to this new understanding of what's actually going on with Mercy and what he needs to give her in order for her to be able to move forward and to not be stuck in the same pattern of thinking that she's in at this current moment. So it's very, very important that he has taken this advice in, even if it did take a little bit to get it to him. And he does revolutionize himself. He does reset his brain. He does, take it to heart and is wanting to move forward by being a helpful force for Mercy. He still declares her as his. In fact, he is even more adamant by saying, you have come to me twice now with wanting me to help you and relying on me, and with this whole experience with you still fighting to the death against somebody pushing their will on you, that I know that we're going to make this work, and I'm going to see through that we can make this work. So yes, it might seem a bit extreme to be like, I'm not going to let you go at this moment when she probably just needs space, but at the same time, it shows, again, that he doesn't see her any less. He does see her still as that strong woman who will be able to move forward. That doesn't mean that he is at this moment being like, now you have to be mine and now you have to be ready for a full relationship. That is not what he is saying. But he is telling her, hey, you can't make any of these excuses that you have before, because now we can see that we can work. This experience has made me see for sure that this can work. And so I am not going to hold back anymore. Once you are ready, I'm going to expect for you to truly give us a shot. So I can kind of understand at this point if people are like, well, that seems like at this moment he shouldn't be saying that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I think that he's trying to help bolster her by saying, I still want you and we're going to make this work. Trying to bolster her up by saying that you're a strong person, you're going to get over this, and I'm going to help you, and we're going to be able to make this work. So, especially with the way Mercy thinks at this time about all of it being a betrayal to Adam, and Adam then saying, no, you're still mine, and I'm going to have you. And her hearing that, I think, actually does help, because she sees it, as Ben is saying, a betrayal to Adam and her wanting to move forward with him. And now he is telling her, no, this is not making any boundaries for us. This is actually showing us that we will work, and we will make it work once Mercy is ready. And it also, I think, is going to affect Adam in many ways, the fact that he had to see the woman that he loves being forced upon and having their will taken away in that way. So I think that though we have not seen from Adam's perspective, we do not know as much about Adam. I do think part of the way he reacts to things with Mercy at first, before Ben clubs him over the head, it's part of, his reaction to having to witness the fact that this woman that he cares about and loves and is supposed to protect and wants to protect, and he failed her and had to watch himself fail her and watch what has happened to her. I think that really hits deep as well. So again, we don't really see as much of the impact that this has to Adam, but I do think it's important for us to keep in mind that, this is going to impact him just as much as it did Mercy, even though it was not something physically happening to him. So again, since this has happened at the end and we're kind of trying to recover from this event at the end here, we're going to see how all of this progresses through the next books and beyond, and how that will change things and affect things. So let's go ahead and move forward with our last topic, which is about Fae Magic. And this is a little bit of world building that has kind of played in through this little last section. Is we're seeing a little bit of the Fae's magic. And yes, this is mostly in their artifacts, but the Fae had to imbue these artifacts with powers that do certain things. So this is part of seeing the Fae's magic and what can be done with it. We do see how powerful it is. Yes, Mercy has this ability to kind of have magic not affect her as much, to have it be not as potent or whatever else, and that probably helped her with the goblet, as well as her strong will. But obviously this is very powerful, dangerous stuff. The walking stick seems like it's harmless, but it keeps showing up. So we will, at this point it seems, continue to see that one. But the goblet and this ring, which it seems like by the way that we are drawn to the fact that Tim has this ring and then he mentions this ring, it helps her become more compliant, be willing to do things. And the goblet completely is trying to take her power away, of being able to resist. He kills his friend with it by having him walk into this into the water and never come out, so these Fae artifacts are very, very powerful, and though they are neutral magic, they are neutral. There's not like, they're innately evil. It depends on who uses them. So we see that the goblet, yes, was evil in Tim's hands, and very powerful evil in Tim's hands, and is what led to a lot of the problems being able to happen. We also see that Nimane, I don't know how to say her name very well. Nimane? Anybody want to help me out on how that is pronounced? I would appreciate it, because I have never known how it should be pronounced. She offers the cup to her, and it helps heal her. So it has two sides to it, and it's very neutral. It depends on the intention of the person and what is happening with the situation and what the end result is supposed to be. But it's very powerful, and though it is neutral, it can be used for very great evil as well as very great good. So that's very interesting to know, especially because, as we know with Fae, how they use their own personal power. How does it mostly get used? We haven't seen enough to know, but it seems like Fae often are not very great, happy people. And if we look back on some of the folklore that is incorporated into this story, like, Mercy's like, oh, I've heard of these kind of stories and these kind of stories. they haven't seemed to be like, you know, the best light of the Fae. You know, the Fae doesn't have the greatest rap, as it were. But it seems like with Z and Uncle Mike, and we have these few Fae that it seems like their powers aren't evil Fae. And so they aren't necessarily using their power for evil either. So it kind of is a reflection of the Fae as well. That they can be neutral just as any person isn't good or evil, depending on what they have. It depends on how they use what they have. So in that way, I say that this kind of reflects how there's a little bit of humanity in the Fae and in the Fae magic, and the fact that it's all about the intention of the user and what they want to do with it that designates what happens. Did that make sense? I hope it made sense. Let me know if I just rambled on into a circle that you didn't understand. And so yeah, I think that this just shows how powerful the Fae are at least how powerful they were when these artifacts were created. We do know that the Fae are having some problems with that, with their powers and working with the humans and that kind of stuff. So we don't actually know how powerful some of them are at this moment. But we do know at least that at some point they are very powerful. They could still be very powerful. We do know that the Fae can be, you know, on either side of the coin at this point, and that their power in the wrong hand can be terrible. Though most power in the wrong hands can be terrible. So it does reflect a little bit of our own humanness as well. So yeah, I do think that just adds a little texture, a little flavor to the Fae, as we've been learning a lot about them in this book. Just adds a little bit more to the world building of the Fae and who they are and how their society, culture, beings all work in this version of the world. Okay, so that's all the main topics I have for today. Of course, any comments, questions, concerns on it, let me know either down below or however else you want to get a hold of me. Let's go ahead and do our nitty gritty really quick. I've got 2 things to mention for us to keep in mind for when we start the next Mercy Thompson book. One is the walking stick. It seems to have taken a very good liking to Mercy. And at this point, she hasn't been able to get rid of it. And it seems that at this point, she might not be able to get rid of it. So we're gonna see how the walking stick comes to evolve, or what its purpose is as the books come by, because obviously Patricia has not just inputted this random walking stick in for no reason. We're gonna see what happens and where things go with the walking stick from there. And then we end right in the end moment of a development with Adam. It seems to be kind of like not like a full cliffhanger, but kind of like a semi-cliffhanger. To be like, what's gonna happen? Like, we kind of stopped in the middle of something. So we're gonna see what happens from there. It seems that Mercy's made her decision to be with Adam and to move forward from the things that have haunted her at this point, the things that have happened to her and are still affecting her. But will they actually move forward or not? Because we kind of are left in this moment where we're not actually sure if he takes her up on it, if it's too soon for her. We don't actually know how this progression is going to take place. She does decide that she's going to take that step forward, and how does that step forward progress? We don't know yet. It's left in the middle, and it's kind of irritating, I know, to leave it there. Sorry for those of you who are like, I really want to know what happens next. Why are we not getting to the next book? I'm sorry. We will get back to this the next book eventually. As I've mentioned a little bit before, but in case you didn't know, we are going to take a short break from Mercy Thompson and talk about some other books for a little bit, get ourselves our little variety, since there are so many Mercy books. I feel like it's good to do a little section, and then we can come back and talk about the next chunk of books at a later time. So we will 100% come back to Mercy for those of you who are interested in discussing her more. and wanting to know what happens next and such, I do say yes, go ahead and keep reading if you are intrigued and wanting to read more of her and see more of her. They are great books, and we will eventually come back to having more detailed discussions on them. But since, it is such a long series, I would like to give some other books a chance. And so we're going to move on to World of the Lupi series by Eillen Wilks. And the first one is called Tempting Danger. So the reason I thought this would be fun to go ahead and do next is we'll go ahead and talk about book 1, which is also, this series is also based around werewolves. So I thought it'd be kind of fun. We'll talk about book 1 in its entirety, and then maybe we can kind of compare and contrast between Patricia Briggs' version of werewolves and a story that has these mythical creatures in it, and what Eillen Wilks does with werewolves and mythical creatures in her world. We can kind of do a little compare and contrast. We'll see if after book 1 we have enough to talk about to compare, or if we'll read books 2 and 3 or whatever else and then have a comparison class. But that is my goal. I thought it'd be kind of fun to see what kind of differences there are in urban fantasy and what different authors choose to do with their own mythological creatures, or their version of the mythological creatures. So we're reading chapters 1 through 5 of Tempting Danger, which is pages 1 through 55 on my Kindle version copy. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this class. Please, please, please let me know down below if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything you want to say, anything I missed, anything at all. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. You're also welcome to follow me or reach me on my social media, which we've got Twitter, which is twitter.com/fantasyfiction1. Or on my Facebook page. You're welcome to see me there, reach me on there, which is also /fantasyfiction1 for Facebook. You're welcome to head over to my blog if you want other content of fantasy nature kind, book reviews, book recommendations, talking about different types of fantasy elements and such like that. There's a lot of content over there, which you can get, which is fantasyfictionfanatics.net. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we now have our Discord if you'd like to join our community of talking to each other and discussing fantasy with other fantasy fanatics, which link will be below, or you're also welcome to find it on my blog as well. The link will be there. Yeah, so I guess I will see you guys in the next class, and I will see you later. Bye!